I'm going to read a portion of the scriptures, because it's always good to start that way. So let me get it real quick. It's right here. And let's see how fast I can find it. I promise I prepared for this. I started at 5:30 today. This is from the first Monday of Lent, so the first actual day of Soma. It's from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus says, "Thinking that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets, I have come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished." Is that what I was going to read? No. Okay. First Sunday of Lent. The more Bible, the better, right? What do you want? This is how things always are with me. Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And he fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was hungry. And the devil, the tempter, came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will give his angels charge of you, and on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, you shall not tempt the Lord your God." Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. And he said to him, "All these I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him alone shall you serve." Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. All right, there's a lot to say about this. I'm not going to preach on this gospel. I just wanted to introduce this idea in the tradition of our church. In our church fathers, Jesus is depicted, is shown, is understood to save the human race, to save Adam and his children from sin and death. We get this from St. Paul, who links these two together. There's lots of different ways theologically to see how these two things are related. But that's a serious thing. Jesus saved us from sin and death. When did he save us from death? When he died and conquered death and rose from the dead, right? When did he conquer sin? Everybody knows he conquered death when he died and rose from the dead. Now death no longer has power over him. When did Jesus conquer sin? I can't hear anybody listening. What I just read is where he defeated sin. He defeated sin because as the Son of God, who is the son of Adam, he faced temptation and defeated it. The opposite of what Adam did. Adam and Eve faced temptation and gave in, and sin ruled them. Jesus faced temptation and didn't give in. This is where he conquered sin. This is why our church fathers, everybody, the whole church agrees this is where Jesus conquered death. But we don't think enough about when he conquered sin. He conquered sin here at the temptation. But what is the form that he did this in? Well, again, I can go through this, and there's tons and tons of stuff to say about the temptation account in the Gospels. But where does temptation come to us? Well, lots of different ways. There's manifold ways. There were 3 different ways Jesus was tempted, and he defeated Satan in all 3 of them. He was hungry in his body. So bodily desire is going to be one of the things that the devil tempts us with. And the glory of the kingdoms, so political power maybe, is going to be another thing that we're tempted by. We're going to be tempted to sell some part of our faith so that we can win some political control. Sometimes even in the name of God, we're happy to sell our souls for political power. The middle one, the one where the devil puts him on the top of the temple and says, "Throw yourself down," that's a little bit more puzzling. Why is Jesus tempted by that? There's a lot of different ways to interpret it. And I think I have a way that I've made sense of it, but I'm not going to tell you. Because I want you to think about it. You're allowed to think too. Okay? The point that I'm trying to make here is the redemption of the human being, the salvation of the children of Adam, is not this sort of instantaneous one thing and then that was it, one single aspect. If the fall of Adam and Eve resulted in them not knowing God anymore, and that's all, if it was just a matter of knowledge, well then the way to fix it is just a reintroduction. We don't know who God is. God can say, hi, I'm God. Okay, problem solved. If it's a matter of falsehood, idolatry, lack of faith alone, God could have just explained things, engraved them on a tablet, sent them down, wrote a Bible, and it could just come down from heaven and somebody would catch it, and now it's done. Now we read it, and now we know things. It's not just this intellectual thing. It was the whole human being that sinned against God, and it's the whole human being that needs redemption. And that begins with our baptism, our faith, our learning about our faith. These are all important things. But if we leave it at that, God can do his job no matter what. But what God desires for us is for us entirely, body and soul, to be redeemed. And that's what his grace accomplishes in us throughout our life of faith. Why am I making a point of this? Because we ask the worst possible questions when it comes to the faith, when it comes to God. And we sort of ask God, what's the bare minimum? What's the least that I have to do? And what's the least that has to happen? That's why we even start to even think about, is it by faith alone? Is it by the Bible alone? Is it these things alone? Is it this alone? The only reason you're thinking about the word alone is because you want to do as little as possible. Can God save you with this or that? I don't know. Let God do his job. God's job is salvation. Our job is reception. And God has sent us so much. And we need all of it. And so, how do we form the intellect? How is our intellect, how is our mind saved? Through faith. Yeah. But there's more aspects to us. What about our imagination? Our imagination is fallen too, not just our intellect. It's not like we just don't know things. Our will, our ability to choose with strength is broken as well. That's where God's grace operates. As I said, our imagination is fallen too. Close your eyes and you might imagine things that you're not supposed to be imagining. There's things written into your little monkey brain that maybe shouldn't be there, that you're going to remember. That, these bad memories, these impure images. So our imagination is kind of imprinted with evil things. God wants to redeem that too. Our emotions, the way we feel, is fallen. We want things that we shouldn't want. I'll speak for myself. I'm guessing that's the same for you. There's a confessional in this church, so I'm assuming some of you sin, right? So our emotions are fallen too. God wants to redeem all of that. He wants to redeem all of us. In fact, in his earthly ministry, Jesus even healed the body. Somebody can be perfectly holy and united to God and have broken legs or something like that. But Jesus, to show his divinity, but also to show that he cares about all of us, body and soul, even healed people's bodies. Let people that couldn't walk, and people who were blind to be able to see. Even though he said, you're the ones that are saying you see, you're the ones that are really blind. This guy who's blind, he sees better than you do. But he still healed that guy's eyeballs. He wants to redeem all of us. That's one of the things that art is about. You ask the question, why shouldn't the church just be this plain, simple building? Just all like white and just nothing, and we just go and hear the gospel? Yeah, if we are only intellects, that's fine. Raise your hand if you're just an intellect. Nobody? I wouldn't be able to see your hand if you were just an intellect, so it doesn't matter. Maybe there are some angels in here raising their hand. The angels don't need art. They don't need music. They don't need storytelling. They don't need the sacraments. We do. God is the one that made us with these with these bodies, with this blood and these bones, and with these kinds of eyeballs and these kinds of ears and this kind of brain that has an imagination that is fallen. And so he's going to redeem what is fallen using the incarnation. The Word became flesh, and through the flesh he redeemed us. Through the flesh, a physical flesh, a physical body that was seen and touched, that Mary Magdalene grabbed onto after the resurrection, that St. Thomas put his hand into. That's how God redeemed us, through his flesh and through our flesh as well. Because it's through our eyes that we can even read the gospel. It's through our ears that we can hear it preached. And it's through these bodies that we receive the sacraments. The incarnation continues through the church, through the mission of the church today. That's what this is all about. So the answer is no, the church should not be just this plain, boring building. It should be pretty. And it should help, it should encourage our imaginations to be redeemed. And all the ugly stuff that we see every day of our life, at least some of it should be godly, should be not just beautiful, but show us the Word become flesh in some depicted way. Now, in case anybody's worried, I'll just again take another survey of hands. Does anybody think that any of the pictures in this church are God? Okay, good. So nobody's committing idolatry. If you do, stop doing that. Good? Okay. I have notes, hold on. I wrote these notes on a Culver's napkin. I said this part. Okay. Part of what this means is, as we are formed and are growing in our faith, part of it is we have to learn about what we believe. That's an important part of it. That's where some people kind of get stuck. They just want to sort of learn stuff. It's great, and I'm an abstract kind of person. I like the idea of learning things, and I write books, so I like the idea of people reading books. Great. But in one of the Psalms, it says, the psalmist is asking God, and this is in the Pshatta, in the Aramaic translation of the Psalms, it says, Ta'ama utaybutha ummad'a allapain. So it's asking God to teach me, allapain, teach me, not just mad'a, not just knowledge, and not just taybutha, which is kind of gracefulness. So it's not just about knowledge and about how to carry myself, good manners, good actions. The first one that it says is ta'ama. The first thing that the psalmist is asking God to teach him is good taste. Dhuq. I like that word, right? So that's one of the things that also has to be redeemed. One of the things that's off about us, that's fallen about us, is that we have bad taste. We like things, we enjoy things that really aren't that good. I can prove that. Look at in any given year, the movie, the music, the book that sells the best is very unlikely the actual best movie that came out that year. But people enjoy mediocre stuff really well. Sometimes they enjoy positively bad stuff. Teach me good taste, ta'ama. The way the church does this is, and has done it before, is through its tradition. The church is experienced in forming people to have good taste. The church teaches people what it is for something to be beautiful. And you learn it from your church, who is your mother, the way you learned it from your parents when you were growing up. And as you grow older, as you grow up, you go from enjoying, I don't know, just ketchup. Little kids usually just drink ketchup. That's the only thing they do, okay? And eventually your palate grows up and you can enjoy something a little bit, not just that. Okay? Maybe there's even a place for catch-up. And when you're a little kid, maybe you like cartoons, and maybe you like to watch certain things. And then as you get older, your taste changes. And then when you're a little kid, you listen to whatever songs are on like the Disney Channel or something like that. And that's the music that you listen to as a kid. And as you grow up, your taste hopefully develops and grows as well. And this is part of, if it's something related to God, your spiritual formation. And the church has been around for thousands of years and knows what is good for your soul. Just like your mom knows what's good for your body and feeds you what's good, the church knows more than you do. And if you can't even admit that, we're back to a spiritual problem. If you think you, who've been around for a couple blinks of an eye, are a better judge of what's cool and pretty and beautiful than the church that's been around for thousands of years and is informed by the Holy Spirit, that's a pride issue. That's not a disagreement. You're simply wrong. And if you don't like that, if you don't like that a 2,000-year-old institution might know something that you don't, that's your problem. So, in other words, if you think this church is tacky, you have bad taste. That's what I'm trying to get. Don't clap for that. I deserve no clapping. It's true, though. You don't have to clap because the truth does not need applause. Okay? Well, why don't I like it? Okay, now you're asking a better question. Well, it's just a little too much gold. Too much gold for God? You got more gold on your engagement. I promise you, every single woman here that's gotten engaged, by ounce, you got a lot more gold. You know why? Because it's gold leaf. It's like one molecule thick. This is not a lot of gold. I promise you, even those of you that are working class got more gold than there is in this entire church. So don't whine about that. Was it expensive? Yeah. But again, add up every icon in this church without any exaggeration. It's a lot less than a below average wedding. The cost of a below average wedding. Your wedding deserves to be spent more, to have more money spent on it than the wedding feast of the Lamb. That all of us participate in, not just your cousins and your second cousins, and then this lady that your mom knew from work that really wanted to come. And then if there's room left, some of your friends too can come to your wedding. You know how that goes? Your wedding is just for your family. And you spent however much you spent on that. This is for all of us. This is a great place to put some money. And divide it out per square foot, per person, this is the cheapest building that you've ever sat in. So stop with the excuses. Shouldn't be plain, it shouldn't. You know why? Because God's creation is not plain. It shouldn't be all white, it shouldn't be all beige and gray. You know why? Because God's creation, when God painted something, he used colors. You think you have better taste than God? Okay, the church, maybe, but God, come on. So let it teach you. Let the church form you. Now, that being said, are there different styles of art even within the tradition of the church? Absolutely. That means there is taste. There's room for variety. There is preference. All that's great. Just don't be dismissive. Just let yourself be a little bit humble and learn a little. Okay, maybe it's me. Let me try. I do that with music that comes out. You know, I teach in a college, and my students, I gave up 10 years ago. I gave up trying to reference a band because no band that I've ever heard of have any of my students heard of. So I just gave up. And I have no idea what they listen to, but I try. I'm like, okay, let me see. It's not, just let me. And I listen to it. And I go, I hate this. But then I'm like, okay, maybe it's me. I don't know. I try not to be dismissive even of this stuff. So at least do that. At least say, okay, yeah, I guess it's growing on me. I've been going to this church for a while. Yeah, I didn't like it at first, but okay, fine. Let yourself be human. Let yourself kind of be formed. Whereas if you march in, oh yeah, that's tacky, this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. All right, you're forming the church. You're kind of acting like the Savior. I don't know. I already have one of those. I don't need another one. And the church has one of those. Now do all of that with the church's music. And you'll have a lot to learn there as well. And the church has a tradition of music. And the church has music that's very, very ancient. Hundreds, probably thousands of years old. Great. You don't like it, it's boring, it's this, that. Okay, again, the same thing. Whose taste is going to be the one that determines the date? This tradition has been around for centuries and has made saints and martyrs? Or the thing that some white dude wrote 20 years ago in half an hour? Nothing against white people. I have some white friends. Right? But like, again, who's the one that I really want to learn from? Give it a chance. Give it a chance. Again, I'm not trying to be like, I'm not saying this is evil and right and wrong and a sin and not a sin. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about taste. And when it comes to taste, there's something to learn. Let yourself learn. Let yourself be formed. That's what spirituality is. Spirituality is not, I feel this thing really hard now. And because I was thinking about God a couple seconds ago and now I'm feeling this feeling, that's spirituality. What are you talking about? That's emotional manipulation. Spirituality is God's grace is changing me and transforming me. And God's grace works through the church. That's spirituality. And to be submissive to that is spirituality. And to let yourself change and to be taught. That's what it is to be a disciple. See what I mean? Now, part of it is the intellect. Part of it is the imagination. Part of it is the emotions. If you want to do a little bit of a correspondence, it's not exactly this black and white, but just a guideline. Intellect has to do with faith, the gospel, learning, the catechism, stuff like that, maybe even theology. The imagination, because it has to do with images, that's what the iconography is about. Emotions really have to do with music. So, weird, their church is also telling you how to feel. And we don't like that as 21st century Americans. But we're not good at feeling things. We're not good at feeling correctly. And it is very possible to feel things incorrectly. Even in relation to God, especially in relation to God. So let the church and its tradition teach you how to feel as well. And you'll see, in the morning, the church wakes up, and she says, glorify the Lord, all the earth. Shabbah al-Mariya kulla ara. And every morning the church says, I want to glorify God. First thing she does in the morning, in her prayers. And you wake up and you don't feel like it. Right? You don't feel like it because you're hungover, or you woke up too early and you're grumpy, or your kids woke you up and you're in a bad mood, and the last thing you want to do is glorify the Lord. And the church says, too bad. I don't care how you feel. God deserves to be glorified, and it's your duty to glorify Him. And don't do what you feel like doing. Do what you should do. Your feelings will come along eventually. That's spirituality. Make sense? Let's talk about the church here. I was here in the middle of the church. There was this thing called a bema, that there was some vandalism happened and it's not here anymore. But there was this thing called a bema in the middle where the shemash would sit during Ramsha. It's not there anymore. You have to look back there. I was there in that bema when this church was blessed. Two patriarchs, Patriarch Bidawid of the Chaldean church and Patriarch Mardincha of the Assyrian church, were both here when this church was blessed. It was beautiful. 1995, do you remember? 5 or 6, yeah. I think it was 96, my dad's saying. Shemashi here, Shemashi there. At the time, it was just this icon in just the middle part. It was just Jesus. The gold on the outside hadn't been done yet. But this is the first icon that was painted. Let's see, I'm going to be turning a lot. Obviously, there's reason for that, because Jesus has to be the center. No matter what else we do, whatever sort of thoughts or ideas we're going to have, it's always got to be Christ. It's always Christ that we're looking at no matter what. Christ, and that crucifix was there. Then we have the Mary and John, who were there at the crucifix. This is obviously heaven. Unity with God through the cross, through the crucifix, because it's Christ's blood that allowed us access to heaven. This is what heaven is, and the altar always represents heaven in a Chaldean church. Okay? And the pews where you're sitting represent earth. And in particular, the bema that was there in the middle represents the earth, where the bread and wine would be brought during Mass from the bema up. So earth is giving bread and wine to heaven, is giving bread and wine to the priest who represents Christ, and he is making this bread and wine into the heavenly food and drink, the body and blood of Christ. Okay? That's the first part of the symbol. So above the middle of the church, if you look up there, is the Holy Spirit. You see the little half dome? No, it's not a half dome, it's a full dome. That dome, if you go back there and look up, there's the Holy Spirit, the dove, and the 12 flames around the dome are the 12 flames that went up on the apostles. So this represents the church militant on earth. The pews, where you're sitting, represent the church militant who is moving forward to heaven. We are all processing, we're on a journey towards heaven. During the gospel reading, actually just from the very beginning of Mass, depends on the Mass, sometimes, on a daily Mass we just come from the side, but in a solemn Mass, the priest will come and go through the pews, walking through the pews, saying, we are all journeying to heaven. And the priest comes up. When there was a bema, during the gospel, there will be another procession. With the gospel book would go up, we're going to heaven, and the gospel is one of the things that's bringing us up to heaven. When do you guys get to walk forward? During communion. And you're walking from earth to heaven, and you're touching heaven as you get to the front. You see that? All that is just here and there. That's just two icons so far. Okay? Now, what do we have? What else do we have? There is an important part that I don't know if a lot of people notice. Actually, I'll start with this inner dome right here that not everybody can see. You can come up and look afterwards. On this inner dome, you have 3 sets of angels on each side. One with a bisma, with a thurible censer, one with a harp, and one with a trumpet. Okay? And then the same thing on this side. These are the darghe. So this is lector, subdeacon, deacon. They represent the 3 minor orders, and then the top is the priest. There's no angel that represents a priest because Christ is the priest. So the top step is the priesthood. This angel is the diaconate right here, is the second step. This step is for the subdeacons. This one is for the lectors, it represents the lectors, and that is the laity. Okay? That's all there in those angels, and then in the steps, they did a good job when they remodeled. By the way, the marble's great. Were you part of that? Or you walked in? Yeah. Good job on that. Yeah. Good job. I actually was praying for that even when I was assigned here, how long ago? 20 years ago. Literally before any of you were born. I was praying, please, God, let it put some stone on the floor, and you, great job. And mashes and everything, good job. And whoever donated, thank you for that. Okay, so that's here in the middle is the shamash of the darghe. Okay. Here is a very interesting, important point. This is the face of Jesus, right? Right to this side is an angel standing on a disc. Anybody know what that disc is? It's the stone, good. And on that side is, what's the angel standing on? The tomb. And on that side, what's coming out of the tomb is the cloth, is the burial cloth. Okay, why did Bishop Serhad, by the way, this is all due to the brilliance of Bishop Serhad, who really spent years thinking about how to develop the icons in this church. Why are they on this surface, sort of the front-facing part of these kind of intricate domes? In order to embrace the faith fully, faith in the Catholic tradition can't be contrary to reason. Faith can be supernatural. We can believe things like the Trinity, even though we can't prove the Trinity. But we can't, it's wrong to believe in something that's just flat out unreasonable and it's just ridiculous. It really is wrong. And I can prove this to you very easily. If it was okay to do that, I just believe it. I don't care if it's ridiculous. Okay, then how do you know this is the right faith? Why aren't you some other religion? Because all of them are ridiculous if you want to take it that way. No, there has to be something special about our faith. There has to be something reasonable. There has to be a reason to believe. Even if we can't prove it, it's got to be a reason to believe. That's what this is. Because in John's Gospel, it says that Peter and John ran to the tomb after the resurrection. They ran to the tomb. We read this every Easter. And then John got there first, but he didn't go inside. He just stooped down and looked inside, respecting Peter, who was the head of the apostles and older and stuff. And he went in. Peter goes in, and he looks around. It says Peter goes in, looks around, sees it. And then John, it says, went in, and then it says he saw and believed. So John is the first one that believed, not Peter. Saw and but what did he see? The only thing that was there for him to see was that cloth and this cloth. That was it. Now, one of our church fathers, Mar Abba the Great, who is the patron of our seminary in San Diego, he writes in a hymn that he wrote, a hymn called Tas wan Hith Resh Malache Min Shmei Shmeya. It's in that hymn, he says that these cloths are sahde, are witnesses to the resurrection. So there's something special about these cloths. And I think what happened is that John went into the tomb, he saw the burial cloth in one place, and then it says he saw the napkin that was wrapped around his head, this one. It says, not with the burial cloth, but folded up and put somewhere else. It says all these details in John's gospel. So it looks like John went in, and they had no idea what happened. Did somebody steal his body? Mary Magdalene thought somebody stole his body. Peter went in, had no idea what to believe. John went in, and I think saw this burial cloth. Okay, that's weird. And then he sees the napkin that's around his head, folded up and put over there. And I think it just clicked, and he said, who's going to steal a body when there's soldiers right there? And they moved the stone out of the way. And they're in a rush. They're hiding from the Jews. The powerful Romans are coming after us. And they're in a situation like that. And they're going to stop and say, hold on, let me fold this napkin up and put it over here. What kind of crazy person would do that? So John, it's like he had this insight. Oh, who folds a napkin? Somebody who's not in a hurry at all. Somebody that you can't hurt anymore. That Jesus rose from the dead and was just chilling. What are you going to do to me now? What else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? And he took the napkin off his head and folded it because, why? I never have to hurry again. And puts it on the side. And I think that's the insight that John got. All that's here. That leads us into this. But if we're on the educated side of people, we're going to want, like, okay, I know you can't prove that Jesus rose from the dead, but, like, you got any evidence? This is some nice evidence right here. This is something to think about that, okay, this makes it believable. It's not just this blind thing that I'm going to believe just because my mom and dad told me to believe it. There's something reasonably that helps us enter our faith more deeply. Okay? On this side, you have St. Peter's Basilica it's like in a little cup over here. Underneath it, inside of this dome right here that's going like this, is the Tower of Babylon. Bishop Said always very proud of his Chaldean heritage. And then we have palm trees coming from the bottom. And let me move over here. What is over here? Oh, it's, a cross, okay. That's over here. What's on this side? Oh, it's vines. Oh, it's like the wedding at Cana stuff, right? Let me walk over there. Hold on. I haven't been here in a while. Oh, there's the cups. Okay, so that's, And there's another chalice. Okay. So that's cool. Now what? Now we have the rest of the church. This is cool. From this point around, it's chronological order. This is in time. All of this other stuff is eternal. It's abstraction. It's about ideas. Down here, we're in the concrete. From this point around, forget about the domes. The domes are just devotional. One side is Matmori and one side is the Holy Family, St. Joseph, beautiful. Aside from those half domes, first one is the visit of the Magi. Okay? First one that happened in time of the icons that are here. This was early in Christ's life. Bishop Saad very rightly is reading very carefully the gospel account of Matthew And in Matthew's account, it says that the Magi got there and they saw the child. It says they got to the house and they saw the child. They did not get to the manger. They were late. I think the Holy Family was in a house by then, maybe even home. So they saw the child, not the infant. So it looks like it took him a couple years to get there. And Bishop Serret is depicting this, I think, correctly. When he had the iconographer who was named Christian, really, really great iconographer. I think he still lives here, doesn't he? Anybody know? He still lives around here? Yeah. Great, one of the best iconographers I've ever seen, as you can see. So as he's directing them, he gives them these directions. The Magi are there. There's typical Babylonian-like symbols on their clothing because they came from the east, very likely from Mesopotamia. I think it's by far the most likely possibility. In our tradition, there's actually 12 of them, but that's a lot of people to cram into a frame. So he just went with the 3 gold, one for each present. Maybe the other 9 are outside waiting and they couldn't fit inside the house. I don't know. Okay. Then you have the wedding at Cana. Again, there's a lot of other stuff that happened, but this church is only so big. You have the wedding at Cana. Why is the wedding at Cana important? Because it has everything to do with the Mass. It's a miracle at a dinner where he's providing here wine, but at his own supper he provides his own blood. And so the miracle of the water turning into wine prefigures the miracle of the wine turning into the blood of Christ. So that's there. What's on that wall by the Transfiguration is the next thing in time, where Jesus reveals his true glory to Peter and James and John. It's the next thing that happens in time. Again, lots of other stuff happens. You could do all kinds of other stuff too. But again, these are well selected, I think, because it's in the Mass that God's glory is revealed best, as it was in the Transfiguration. Then, before we get to the Stations of the Cross, inside the baptismal room, you have 2 different icons. Are they still there? Okay, good. I was going to be very angry. In the baptismal room, we have 2 different icons. You have the baptism of Jesus, which is the obvious one. But you also have a very smart icon to put. You have Jesus' presentation at the temple when he's an infant. Jesus was given to God and dedicated to God as an infant before he knew what was going on in his humanity. And all of the people of Israel did that. That was their practice since the Old Testament, since the Old Law, since Leviticus. So if anybody has questions about, well, should we baptize babies? Jesus was dedicated to God as a baby. What are you talking about? You think you're smarter than he is? Okay. Stations of the Cross. I'm not going to go through each one, but they go in order this way because it's just consistent. We're going in time. Time is moving in this direction. It's clockwise if you're looking down upon the church. Okay? We're going around, Station of the Cross, condemned to death, takes up his cross, and so on, all the way over here. He's laid in the tomb. He's laid in the tomb. What's on that outside wall? It's called the harrowing of the gates of hell. It's a very, very ancient tradition of Jesus going into Sheol, into the place of the dead, and breaking the doors open to free the souls of Adam and Abraham and the prophets who were waiting for the Messiah to come, because heaven was closed after the sin of Adam. And now Jesus breaks the doors of death. You see it? On that outside, on the left of that speaker, to let out these prophets. You can go and you can even pick out some of the prophets. I think Moses is holding the commandments. There's some other ones that you can sort of say, oh, okay. Right? Okay. Then, next in time, Jesus appears to Thomas after he appears to the 12. And there's Thomas, who is putting his hand in Jesus' side. Okay? Why Thomas? By very ancient tradition, he's the apostle that evangelized our church, okay, on his way to India. I believe, and I have not confirmed this, but I'm pretty sure, and I'll have to ask Christian, the iconographer, he, but just without even asking anybody, he made St. Thomas look like Bishop Serret. I'm fairly sure that's on purpose. Because he's the only one without a beard, first of all. And there's no reason for him not to have a beard, and it looks like him. He's got the really angry eyebrows and stuff like that. You remember him? Hasid. Okay? Okay. Then we have my favorite icon here, actually, is this, the road to Emmaus. And this is, again, last in time. And this is when Jesus, walking with them, goes in and breaks bread with them, and they know him in the breaking of the bread. And the entire Emmaus passage is a prefiguring and a kind of revealing of the entire structure of the Mass. And in the Chaldean Church in particular, we really hold this part of the Bible very, very dear to us. Why is it in this particular direction? Because Jesus says, this is the new covenant in my blood. The New Testament, the new covenant, is in his blood. And the New Testament is really, when everything is accomplished, it's really here. This sort of, the New Testament is on this side. This is, we're still, during John the Baptist's time, it's still the time of the prophets. Okay? And so the New Testament is in his blood, and his blood came from his right side. And so the New Testament needs to be on this side. Does that make sense? Similarly, when the cup and the bread are brought up to the altar, the cup is on the right side of the crucifix. It needs to be under the pierced side of Christ, because that's where the blood came out. So the chalice of wine at the beginning of Mass needs to be on that side. See that? And then the priest would take it up to the altar and pay attention to make sure that it's still on. I don't know what they're doing, and it depends on the sort of arrangement of things, but traditionally the priest would make sure, even if he were to turn and face the cross, he would cross his arms to make sure that the chalice would stay on this side. Not because there's something special about making arms across. It had nothing to do with that. It was like, no, he grabs it, he turns around, and now the chalice is wrong. It's wrong. He's got to put it back over here. That's why that would happen. You see that? Very, almost OCD, we got to make sure the chalice is on this side. Chalice is the new covenant in his blood. And the blood, and the tradition that the blood came from his right side is in the Bible, but not really. Because the earliest we find it is in an Ethiopian translation of the Gospels. It's not in the actual Greek Gospels. In one of the Ethiopian translations of one of the Gospels, it says they stand them in the right side. It adds that little note. So that's where that tradition, the earliest part of the tradition, can be traced to that. So it's pretty early. I mean, it's like, I don't know how old that translation is, but it's really old. So, that's pretty cool. And then, I don't know what else. Then they did the floor. This one is part of the tomb opening and stuff like that. That's all three of these are part of the sort of, let's see a reason why this is plausible. The plausibility of the faith. The stars, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good note, actually. Let's talk about that. This church was supposed to be like 10 feet higher. And then there used to be an airport on Big Beaver and John R. Where am I pointing? Yeah, this way. There was an airport over there with like little tiny Cessna planes. And they were like, no, the church is too tall because these planes are going to, run into it. So they made him push everything lower. The architect had to push everything lower. And then they closed the airport. That's our luck. Yeah. Any questions on this stuff? I've spent many, many, many hours praying in this church, so that's why I've been thinking about this for so long. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah. The flaming sword. She's asking about the flaming sword that one of the angels is holding next to Mount Moriah. The flaming sword is the cherubim outside of heaven was told to guard heaven after Adam and Eve were expelled. This icon is referring to an old understanding in the Church of the East liturgy and theology that Mary is heaven. She is personally herself heaven. Because this is where God dwells on earth and so on. So that's the angel is next to Mary because he's guarding her. Yeah. What's by St. Joseph? Oh yeah. This is, I don't know where this tradition started, but I've seen this around. You'll see it in stained glass windows or in images or icons where there'll be an image of St. Joseph and either he himself or an angel next to him is holding the building that you're standing in. They have one of those, at Sacred Heart Seminary, there's a stained glass window, same thing. He's sort of like, I'm protecting you, I don't know, something like that. It's cute, it's a nice old tradition. So he's holding this building, St. Joseph Church. Other questions? There was another hand up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It connects you to the divine in your imagination, not just your intellect where you just memorize things and now you know the truth. When you're imagining things, well, here, I'll tell you what to imagine. And when you feel things, and the church sings, this is what you feel. And all this is meant to connect us to God. Exactly. Exactly. Kathleen?
Is it true that they were supposed to do more to the walls and the ceiling before? I remember hearing that way back when
I am not aware of that, and I don't think so.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could do.
Or is it just like it was pretty slick or
I don't know. I mean, I don't like white personally. It's not a racist thing. I just I'm like. I'm some of my best friends. I'm telling you. But it looks okay. I wouldn't add more to it. I think this is pretty thorough. Yeah. Yeah.
Not so much art, but can you talk about like the Chaldean church and like the way our altar is oriented? I know like
I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah.
I can talk about that.
I don't know.
It was always against the wall. And I mean, here's the thing, it has nothing to do with the Chaldean church. All the churches from the apostolic age had that. Latin church, Greeks, all of us did it that way. And then, I think it was in 1960 we discovered that God is everywhere. We didn't know that before. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Yeah,
Actually, this one is on art. The two symbols above the tabernacle and then
yeah.
that as well. Does that have any meaning?
That's the like a nationalistic symbol. Bishop said it was very like Chaldean, Assyrian. This is kind of like, if you look at the Assyrian flag, it's exactly that shape. He was into that. He was big into the unity movement between our people and stuff like that. Let's keep going with that, hopefully. Oh yeah, the blue is the rivers for sure, yeah. Yeah. At St. Peter's, he did the rivers too. He liked the rivers. Yeah.
So when you said the steps,
Yeah. 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 So this first angel represents the lector. This step is where lectors sort of are represented. And then you're moving towards the priesthood, you have the subdeacons, the shemashah. And that's the second angel represents them. And then this is the deacons, the third angel. And then the priest is Christ. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, man? I don't like those stained glass windows. Those two, they're okay. No, sorry, I take it back. They're not bad. Those, like number 1, number 3, 4, and 6 are incensers. They're thuribles. The ones in the middle are crosses. So it's kind of like we're doing perma to the cross, and then those back ones are crosses. I think he was running out of like ideas when we went to like saying like, I don't know, just put some crosses there or something. Because what are you going to do with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What are you going to do with 8 windows, you know? It doesn't even symbolize, I mean, Beatitudes, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, the ceiling, other than the Pentecost thing, the sort of curves in the ceiling and the sort of design of it, it's just like a cool design. I guess it's a cross. I mean, you can. Here's the thing, and then Saint Ephrem, one of our church fathers, says this: you can pretty much find a cross anywhere if you're looking for it. You know what I mean? However, what I was going to say about the ceiling and the sort of curves and all of the sort of things in it, this made it into like architectural magazines as a kind of like marvelous thing. Like, whoa, this is really impressive. At the time, in the late '90s, when this was built, there was an article about the ceiling of this church because it was so kind of complex and intricately done. Yeah.
How come our churches don't have the velas anymore?
Probably the same reason the altar's all the way out here. Yeah. The function was it represented earth. It was where you would pray Ramsha and Sapra. It was where the first half of the Mass, where the clergy would sit until the gospel, then they would do a procession up there. The bread and wine were there until they were brought up forward. It had a ceremonial purpose. And then this aisle between was called the Qastroma. It's just sort of the connecting aisle. Yeah. However, to be genuinely fair, this sort of represents the Bema now. Where the Shemasha and the choir are, that's kind of what the Bema was at the time. And a lot of churches, even in Iraq, old churches, did that. They just sort of like just put the Bema next to the altar. It's okay, nothing wrong with that. You know, yeah.
Is there even the doors on the side, not the back?
Yes,
Or no, the back?
because east is that way. And traditionally, the altar was always facing east. Because Christ is the dawning sun. You know, he's represented by the dawning sun, so we would always build it east. And so the old St. Joseph Church, which is now, you call it the Academy still? The Academy was the old church. That altar was facing north. And that bothered Bishop Seta, and he said, no, if I'm going to build a church, I'm going to make it feast. So he made it face east, and everything was arranged around that. And so we ended up with the bride has to like drag her dress around the corner when she, right? Who's gotten married here? A handful of you? You didn't appreciate that, did you, at the time? Yeah. Nobody likes that. I remember the brides whining all the time. And then I moved away. Yeah.
Why the church was built on this side instead of that side?
I don't know. Why does it matter? Who cares? Yeah, you're just coming up with questions now. Ma baqarta alay. Yeah, what's up, man?
Is there any significance to the cross splitting the trees in this stone?
I don't know, actually. I don't want to guess that. But now that I'm here, I see there's olives, too. Those are olive leaves. But is it splitting them? I don't know. Is it kind of an outgrowth of them? I'm not sure. Yeah. Yep, even I don't know everything.
How long did it take to finish this?
The church was built in 96. That's when this first icon, I don't know when the last icon was done. I know that was the last one. I think the stations were the last ones. I don't remember what year they would have been completed. Anybody know? Yeah.
Asking about those 3 rings and the fires at the top.
I don't know. I mean, 3 is going to be something Trinitarian. Yeah. The Aleph and Tau is the first and last letter of the alphabet. So the Alpha and the Omega, but in Chaldean letters. This is Ma Habimin Meshkinik Mani Harthana. How lovely are your tabernacles, Lord God Almighty. It's there. I remember when they typed this out to give it to I was in the rectory when they typed this out to give to the iconographer to put on there. I witnessed a lot of this stuff firsthand. What is it? Yeah, I lived here. I was living here, even as a seminarian. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I addressed that. That's kind of the like Mesopotamian star, Chaldean Assyrian kind of social national thing. Yeah. I was never fond of the colors of the stained glass. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's okay. It looks nice. Yeah. Well, I teach at a school that's media oriented. My students at the university want to be filmmakers and artists of various kinds. And what we tell them a lot is the biggest temptation as a faithful artist is, and you're not going to do this on purpose, but a lot of them will think that their faith is a replacement for their work. And that's why so much Christian art is so bad. Like Christian movies and stuff, they're just garbage, they're terrible. A lot of the Christian music is just bad music objectively. And I think that comes from this attitude like, oh, God is, okay, I'll tell you what the second temptation is about. We're back to this, we can finish with this. The second temptation, Satan puts them on top of the temple and he says, throw yourself down and the angels will catch you. That's what that is. I'm not going to try that hard. God's going to do the rest. But then your product is terrible. You want to get down from the temple, you use the stairs. And just because you're standing on something holy doesn't mean you don't have to do your work. On the contrary, it means you have to do your work 10 times harder so that it can be deserving of the glory of God in whatever meager way human work can be deserving. Yeah. I think that's what the temptation on the temple is, the second one. Yeah. Or it's like, I need to make a decision in my life, right? And instead of doing the work of actually thinking through, I'm going to open the Bible and point to something, and it says, Alma, or whatever, I just pointed at a word, and that's going to be my answer. No, don't throw yourself, you're making a decision for your life. What's wrong with you? Think through and ask people advice and balance things out. You don't make God do your work for you. You're not going to make the angels catch you. You want to get to walk down the stairs. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's my advice. Work harder is my advice. Yeah.
In the wise man scene, when there's the cloth, is that like a foreshadow of Veronica? Because it's
No. I wish. That would be cool. The cloth has the line of from the Ishtar gate of Babylon. So it's one of the cloaks of the Magi. Yeah. Yeah.
I heard that there's significance in the colors. That like Jesus wearing red and blue, and Mary's red,
Yeah.
mostly red.
Yeah, the traditional colors in iconography are very, very symbolic. Generally, red is going to have something to do with blood and sacrifice and martyrdom. Blue is going to be something heavenly. Purple is going to be kingly, usually. Gold means God, or like maybe heaven itself, but that's why there's so much gold here. Yeah. Machana, that's it? Can I go home, Maggie?
Why is the tabernacle on the side and not
In the Chaldean church, okay, this is actually a really historically complicated question. Why is it not in the middle, Maggie's asking? Why is the tabernacle not in the middle? That causes a sacramental weirdness where when the priest was facing east, you're offering the Eucharist to the Eucharist. And it's just a little, it's not wrong or evil or something like that, but it's just kind of a little incongruent. And so they would do that. Now, the sort of ancient solution to that in the Church of the East, in the ritual for the consecration of a church, not in the printed edition. I don't know why it's not in the printed edition, but there's older manuscripts. I remember sort of running into this years ago. There was a curtain at the door of the sanctuary. And actually, right here, there's a little insert where there could have been a curtain right here. And I also remember when this church was getting built, my dad was coming up with like a little mechanism to like where it would retract and the pole would retract with it, so that it would open, but then you wouldn't have like the rod that was opening. But it never happened. But anyway, there's that first curtain. Then, if the church was sort of big enough, there's another curtain just on the altar, just like right next to the altar. Okay. Then, and both of those are mentioned in the like documents, but if you have to go and dig really deep to find, there was actually a third curtain. Against the wall, basically they would have a tabernacle on the far end, but there was a curtain covering it. And then it says in the document, this is Qudosh Qudshe, this is the Holy of Holies. So this is the holy place, but the Holy of Holies is that tabernacle. And so what you would get in those situations is this really cool sort of linear thing. You would have right here, you can see this in Assyrian churches still, right in front there's the gospel book. Then you have the altar, and then what you won't find in Assyrian churches, unfortunately, is the tabernacle, but all in a straight line. I think that's awesome, and I would totally do that if I was building a church one day. But I'll probably, I'm going to retire this year, so who knows. I'm an old man. Look at all this gray. 46, man. Bessa. Miwit Khazia. Stars are just heaven. Yeah, the sky. Yeah. Yep. Somebody has their eyes closed? Yeah, I don't know. Is that Eve, you think? Do you think this is Eve? Eve usually doesn't have clothes, man. This might be a Hannah or one of these Old Testament prophetesses or something, yeah. I don't know why her eyes are closed. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It would not surprise me if Christian had like early drafts of this where all of these were named. You can probably find them and ask him. He might still have that stuff. I want to get some White Castle. What else? Huh. So style-wise, this was an attempt. There's not really a Chaldean style or a Church of the East style in general. Not because we didn't have iconography. We have it mentioned in our documents. It's very, very clear. The whole Church of the East had icons. But because of persecution and the destruction of churches over so many centuries, very little was kept, if anything. And so we never really had an opportunity to develop a visual style. This was an attempt to sort of start that. What you'll notice is it's a little bit more fleshy, like three-dimensional, than like a Greek-style icon. That was Bishop Seder's way to say, okay, what's special about our tradition, about the Church of the East, the Assyrian Church, the Chaldean Church? We take Jesus' humanity very seriously. It's something very real to us. So he wanted to sort of make them a little bit more concrete rather than the flat style of the Greeks. So it makes a little bit more of the Russian sort of style of iconography, but it's not as, it's a little bit more down to earth than the Russian style, which is a little bit kind of, I don't want to say more elegant, it's just more sort of fancy. Whereas Jesus here, like the apostles, you can sort of see they're upset. You know what I mean? You can really sort of see, I think that's his attempt to sort of begin to develop a Chaldean style. Yeah. These are good questions. Bessa? What's up, man?
Has anybody else replicated what was done here in any of the other churches going forward? Because we know it's developing other Chaldean churches.
St. George used the same iconographer. There's not as many icons. And they didn't use him for the Stations of the Cross, but they used him for the ones up front.
I think,
Ennis? Yeah.
almost certain, Christian, the iconographer, did the Macedonian church on 19 right.
Oh, yeah. He did that first.
Because if you walk
Yeah.
up there, it looks like,
It's him.
it looks like if I had a weird dream where I was St. Joseph.
Yeah.
That's what that church looks like on the inside.
Oh, yeah. He did that Macedonian church too, yeah.
None of the other Chaldean churches are like,
That's what she was asking. St. Peter's, we tried to replicate it. We couldn't afford Christian at the time. He's worth every penny, but we just didn't have the money at the time, so we used somebody else. Not to my knowledge. Yeah. Not too late. Yeah.
so St. George actually, the church that didn't finish. So it would have looked more like this, but they didn't finish the middle one. It's all one.
I don't know, because St. George, it's not that there was a plan for St. George that, Christina, can I answer her question, please? My sister's trying to talk. It's not that there was a big plan for St. George that nobody completed. It was just handed over to a different, Bishop Sedhead gave it to the hands of now Bishop Shalita, and Bishop Shalita finished not just the doing it, but even the planning it. It just wasn't, so I don't know if there was plans for icons for St. George.
I was just told they were supposed to fill the dome. They filled the outside dome.
I don't know. I was already like in California by the time they were doing St. George. I think I'll give you my gut sense. I think the center dome could use a little bit of color. It just kind of sticks out, the one at St. George, but I say more than that, I'll get stoned or something, yeah. Oh, thank you. Do you know why? Because there's no people on the face of the earth that hate themselves as much as Chaldeans. We will sell to anybody for any reason. She asked, why aren't there a Chaldean church? Why aren't they named after Chaldean saints? Because there's nobody that hates themselves as much as Chaldeans do. Whatever is not mine, I love more. That's what Chaldeans do. If it's Arab, if it's Maronite, if it's American, if it's European, if it's whatever it is, as long as it's not mine, I want it more. Does that sound familiar? Stop doing that. I just fixed the problem. But yes, thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Pray for your people. Well, here's the thing. I like St. Joseph because St. Joseph is in the Bible and he's everybody's. You know what I mean? And you want to really get into it, the genealogy of Jesus, not just through Mary, but through Joseph, according to St. Matthew, it traces Jesus' genealogy through Joseph, who is his legal father. Not his biological, but his legal father. Matthew says, well, that's important. Let's see Jesus' genealogy. And he traces him back to Abraham from Ur of the Chaldeans. So yes, we get St. Joseph. You know what I mean? They can have Saint whatever. Mar'adeh is one of ours that we did. St. Thomas, we can say he came and evangelized us, so that's sort of connection to us. Yeah. 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 Gray squares. On the outside? Oh, yeah. So those are speakers, that's how you can hear me. Yeah. And it's gray because they haven't replaced the cloth that goes in front of it. It used to be gold. They're still the same ones that when like that my sister and Nineveh were here at 13 years old singing. They're the same cloths that were here. Okay, Bessa. Okay, let's pray. Stand up and we'll pray like a prayer and we'll get Shemid Baba Quran. Shalom Alech Maryam, Nitha Na'am, Maran Emmach, Buracht Insha, Burkhere Pered Kasach Isha, Mat Maryam, Yimnid Ala, Salih and Badan, Akhni Hatai, Dahab Shefer, Baba Quran, Ruhat Bacha. Ya Allah. Yeah, God bless you guys. Thank you.